Hey, Alpha Fam, welcome back to another episode of Alpha Commission. Today on Alpha Commission, I just want to go over the pump that we're seeing on the Bitcoin chart and, of course, the run that quite a few altcoins are getting, as well as the stock market, because we want to understand what possibly could come up next, and is this going to continue through the weekend? What should we be on the lookout for? So just jumping over to Bitcoin really quick, you can see that we are putting in a formation that was very similar to the formation on the previous level. And I've pointed this out several times, which is why I was able to give an early bullish warning signal that perhaps we could put in a bit of an arc to the upside, and then we might have a phase where we start to get a pullback, and then if this holds up as a kind of fractal, we're likely to see a push up and perhaps a pattern similar to this. As you can see, we did have the broadening descending wedge, also here a broadening descending wedge, and the targeted move for that would of course be the original breakdown here. And while that's not guaranteed, it is something that we would at least want to look for, and that we could suggest that altcoins and the market in general would try to follow that path up there. Of course, the professional exchanges and the 24-hour exchanges are out of sync during the weekend. So as the Friday close came along, now we're in a little bit of a different territory as compared to the last couple days. And I do believe that Bitcoin and the 24-hour exchanges and the professional exchanges are still getting synced up. Again, on the professional exchanges, you can see that we really didn't put in the same formation that we put in on the 24-hour exchanges. And so what we're seeing is something a little bit more like just a plain channel down, and we're finally getting a breakout on that. And we're not really seeing the descending broadening wedge that we were seeing before. However, if we do look at the measured move of this channel, then you can see that the measured move to the breakout would still bring us to the neckline of the original breakdown of this channel. And so that would be quite in line with what we would expect on the 24-hour exchange. So even though their formations are slightly different, they are starting to sync up. And if you're not really seeing Bitcoin just going for it, a lot of people are wondering, why isn't Bitcoin joining in on this rally? Well, there may be two things going on. Number one, I believe that the professional exchanges and the 24-hour exchanges are still in that process of syncing syncing up after a dramatic smash down all the way down to, 17,500 on the 24-hour exchanges. And so there is going to be a bit of price negotiations going on as the real price is found and the market just sorts itself out. But on top of that, we also have Ethereum getting a bit of a recovery. Ethereum was hit very hard in this market. And if we go ahead and look at ETH versus Bitcoin, you can see that it is recovering quite a bit of its losses, so a solid 10% against Bitcoin, which is, pretty significant. And if we were to consider, the ETH dominance, look at its history. Okay, ETH had been traveling, in this channel since, the since January 2020, right? So for over 2 years, about 2.5 years, we've just been in this very beautiful channel. Look how beautiful that is, right? And what happened? We broke down. And so now we're in no man's land. ETH kind of has to figure out what is it doing here. And, this is going to have a bit of a complication for the rest of the altcoin market. And what do I mean by that? A lot of the altcoin market follows ETH, stronger than it follows Bitcoin. And so when ETH broke down like this, you really saw the altcoins go along with it. In other words, the altcoins and the ETH market just started to die way faster than Bitcoin. And so it basically became, Bitcoin season, right? Well, what you're seeing is just a little bit of a reaction rally as we perhaps are hitting this wick right here, perhaps this little area right here, a little bit of this consolidation area here, where this was the push up, right? It's kind of like a supply zone here. And so, we basically tapped these areas, and what you're seeing is just a reaction rally off of that. Now, whether ETH continues to drop, that's a good question, but you are seeing many altcoins just rallying quite a bit, right? Like we got, I mean, if you look at the individual charts, let's just take a look at Sol, right? If you look at the individual charts, you can see that, Sol alone is getting quite some play off of the ETH rally, where ETH is leading it, and Sol is up 59%. So guys, like when I was giving those bullish titles and mentioning that there was some bullishness to be found in the market, I mean, look at this, Sol is up 15% just from a couple days ago. And although I primarily cover Bitcoin, because I don't want you to get wrecked on alts during a down market. As I mentioned, alts are just screaming down way faster than Bitcoin. At some point, that's going to flip on its head, and we're just going to see, alts just screaming upwards, much faster than Bitcoin during these rallies, especially whenever ETH finds some health. And so that's what we're seeing right now. And so pay attention to what ETH is doing because it can give a little bit of push to your favorite altcoins. Now, there are some altcoins that don't follow ETH. For example, Matic is one that does follow ETH, right? And so look at this incredible rally. And I was lucky enough to be in Matic. I had a position in Matic, but look at this rally, like 60 to 80%, right? Depending on where you would catch that. Probably around here on that higher low. And then, of course, we take a look at something like let's go ahead and jump over to KDA. And for KDA, you can only see, look at this tiny push up here of approximately 15%, right? If we just look at this last little leg, just like 7%, it's not really joining in on those mega push rallies. And that's because KDA trades a little bit more with Bitcoin. So some of these altcoins are going to be trading more with Ethereum, and some of them are going to be trading more with Bitcoin. And since Bitcoin isn't really doing the push right now, it's Ethereum catching up to Bitcoin, where the push is coming from primarily. You will see a delayed reaction until Bitcoin has a nice run. When will Bitcoin have a nice run? My guess is either at the middle of this next week or perhaps at the end of it. But I do believe that Bitcoin is still waiting for some confirmations on data. Where when we get the PCE data, which should be coming out on the 30th, I believe, then of course, Bitcoin will decide if it's free to run or not. But until we get that PCE data, I just don't think that Bitcoin is really going to make the push that people would like. And yeah, if we look at the economic calendar here, you can see that the core PCE inflation data will be coming out on Thursday, June 30th, which is the end of this next week. And so Bitcoin, we might see a front run of that data, or we might just wait for the data to come out. And if it's bullish, I think Bitcoin will go on its run, and some of these coins that follow Bitcoin will probably run with it. But until then, we do see coins like Sol and ETH front running the potential move. And getting some nice runs. So pick your coins wisely because they're not all going to be doing the same thing right now. A lot of the market is out of sync, and we're just going to have to wait for some of that data to get everyone on board. If you look at USDT dominance, of course, the use of Tether, as a stable coin is decreasing dramatically, right? We reached a high, and now we're coming back into this. I don't want to call it like a lower level. It was actually our previous like all-time high, but this kind of like hell region where just like crypto is dead, right? And so this is like zombie. I mean, it's like beyond dead, right? Like this was a little bit too extreme. And so we're coming back into those like normal extreme levels where at least people are having Tether on the exchanges, ready to buy alts, ready to buy Bitcoin if they want it. But yeah, I mean, this was just pure terror in the market. And hopefully this continues to come down. That would show that we're going to get a little bit of a run. I would suggest that perhaps this midpoint here is probably a little consolidation area, or maybe 6.5%. So perhaps 7% or 6.5% would be good areas to be targeting just for the run. And so as long as USDT continues to come down to those areas, probably we're going to have continue to have a little bit of fun in the market, and maybe even it could come down to the next level if the inflation data is really good, right? But don't get your hopes up and be pretty conservative because this market is just weird and it could turn around on a dime. So always be ready to sell, always be ready with your stop losses, and take your profit. Don't become greedy. Take your profit and buy something for your family. Buy food, pay the rent. Go on a summer trip or something, but don't just believe in this market. There's nothing to believe about in this market. This market is not an ideal market. It's not a market that you want to have idealism in. Okay, this is just an emerging, technology, a new market. There's lots of criminals, lots of shady activity, lots of manipulation. Your coins don't care about you. Please don't care about your coins. Sell them and take care of your family. Okay, and you can always buy pullbacks and sell the pumps, but don't be chasing pumps, and also, don't just sell everything at the bottom of the market. Wait for a nice pump and then sell. And then if you get a pullback, just buy a little bit more so that you can trade the next pump. Okay, guys, let's see. I think there's a couple other things that we might want to just check out just to see if anything's going on here. Let's just see, where did the VIX end up closing? Oh, okay, so we did come down quite a bit. We're closing in on my area here, which would suggest that perhaps early next week, there might be a little pump up in the market in terms of volatility, which would make trading a little bit more difficult. So be careful, perhaps Monday and Tuesday if this turns around. But otherwise, maybe it will open easy, and then, Tuesday and Wednesday may be a little bit difficult. Until the end of the week might be a little difficult, and then who knows? But just pay attention to this VIX. We are getting wedged here, and it's possible we could break down or break up from this wedge at almost any time. Breaking up would mean that trading is more difficult. It's more likely to short the market, and then if we break down, it's more likely that a long positions will do well. And same thing with the dollar. The dollar is kind of trending downwards, but it does just look like a kind of pullback. It doesn't look like a macro reversal yet. It just looks like one of these type of, kind of muddy formations. And so there's always the possibility that the dollar could just pump back up, and that would make trading harder. But if it does fall back into this like green supportive area down here, then I would suggest that trading might get a little bit easier. And so, we're going to want to see the VIX break down, and we're going to want to see the DXY, the dollar, break down, and that'll make trading crypto a little bit easier. Let's see here. Just talking about stocks, you can see that we did get that push that I was looking for. We actually smashed through it, right? I was saying we had to hold on to that 11,800 if we wanted this market to have a bullish look. And wow, okay, the market's just like exceeded my expectations. And so, when I'm saying that there might be some type of volatility on Monday, Tuesday, etc., look, we are approaching this kind of like resistance area. It might not be hard resistance. It's possible that we could continue to push up, but at the same time, we might get rejected and we might do a little bit of a pullback, maybe just a bullish pullback before continuing. And so you will just want to monitor when we do get a retrace, because right now we have a higher high, but we're not really getting a higher low yet. And we do have to put a higher low in if we are to maintain bullishness. So we do expect some type of retrace at some point. And that's also going to be true for Bitcoin. So if you look at the Bitcoin chart, you can see that we're starting to turn around a little bit here, and that's normal. I would suggest that as long as we're above that 19,000, let's just say 900-ish price, that nothing's too wrong here. We're okay, and then we're just going to want to see if we can get some lift off there, and maybe do it again, and then potentially we have the chance to go. And if we get a rejection, then that will probably, this area is probably going to depend upon the PCE data, that inflation number that comes out. So again, on June 30th, right, you're really going to want to be paying attention to what's going on in the markets, because you know that that June 30th data can really control some things. And we also have some numbers that might impact how we see the possibility of recession coming up in next week. So it could be a little bit of choppy trading in the next week, but I would still expect us to have a nice pump if we do get good inflation data. And then we could perhaps meet my target here of this 23,000. Let's just say 500-ish, could be more or less, but and then maybe even exceed it, right? Even we might even have a push higher, for example, to 25,000, which if we could secure that, then maybe we could get a push to 30,000. I've showed you that before on, this kind of a chart, right? And so if we look at that, then you can see the play that I'm looking for here. This push up, right? That retrace, and then the bullish push, which I mentioned to you guys, where the alts were going, and then potentially some type of pullback here, and then maybe a chop around, and then hopefully a pump. It could come a little bit earlier if the market wants to front run it, and potentially if bad news is leaked, we could also see a dump. So just to be on your toes. But I am seeing this fractal playing out, and what we really want to hold on to is that 24 to $25,000 area if we do want to see a continuation of this drive, because that's just going to change some of the setups of the EMAs on the daily. And what we're really looking for is a proper squeeze play. Right now, we have most of our EMAs pointed to the downside, but you can see our short-term ones are threatening to point to the upper side. And so if we can hold this 22,000, and then we can hold this 25,000, what's going to happen is all of these EMAs are going to scoop us up, whereas we were not able to hold it up here back in May. And so we dropped down. You can see it's kind of like a river, right? Pouring water. Like the river just swept us down. But had we been able to get into this area, like they would have started to scoop up, and that would have given us a much better chance of, a run like this, where you see all of these EMAs kind of scooping up, lifting it up, and then eventually it broke down, meeting a bunch of resistance. And perhaps we can have something like that, just a nice run, and alts will go crazy if that happens. Like we're gonna have a nice run with many coins if we can do that. But just pay attention to that PCE data, that inflation data, because that's going to be key next week. And watch out for the chop. We do need to put in a higher low. We have this higher low, and our next higher low has to be put in at some point. Let me go ahead and turn off these EMAs, maybe turn off this, and if we can just take a look at the Heiken Ashi candles, then what you can see here, maybe on the 12-hour, yeah, there we go. The 12-hour makes it pretty clear, which is you can see, for those of you who are a little bit newer, after we have this type of a dump, you can see we have like a couple run of several candles. This is approximately 5 candles, 3 candles. This is approximately 5 candles. Here you had a massive dump, and then you had 2 candles, 1 candle, 3 candles, 1 candle, 2 candles, 3 candles. So you can see that it was approximately 2 to 3 candles per each of these runs up here. Here we seem to be having approximately 3 to 5 candles, and so having reached 5 candles here, probably we could expect a pullback of 3 to 5 candles. And so maybe the next couple days aren't going to be the biggest push on the Bitcoin chart, but it doesn't mean that all the alts are going to be following Bitcoin right now. They're probably going to be following ETH just as much as they're following Bitcoin. But if you look at ETH, you also see, kind of this toppiness to the structure. And while, this period isn't over yet, we could have another push. It's just likely that, we would eventually put in a higher low, right? So if ETH is driving this push right now, then it just has to put in like a higher low in order to get a higher high, right? Like we have to have higher lows as well, right? I mean, sometimes we can go straight down and sometimes we can go straight up, but if you just want like a nice, healthy, drive upward, then, you're looking for those higher highs and higher lows. And so let's look for the next higher low, which means a little bit of a retracement, which means consider to take some profits if you haven't yet. I'm not the boss of you. This isn't financial advice, but for me personally, I would be looking to take some profit here if I hadn't done so yet, and then perhaps looking for a nice pullback. And as long as we don't violate, let's say 1,100 to 1,050 on Ethereum, then I would suggest that those altcoins are probably going to go for another run. As long as we just kind of double bottom or maybe make a bottom that's a little bit higher than the previous low on Ethereum. And by the way, I should be looking at the regular candles for those prices. Yeah, 1,050. As long as we stay above $1,000, $1,050, then potentially we've just got a higher low, and Ethereum can continue to push, and then those alts that are following Ethereum should also continue to push. Just a little note here: we are in this heavily resistant area, and so it may be a little bit of work to push through it. We just have this, resistance right here. And so it's gonna have to, perhaps chop around or do some, some kind of magic in order to get through there. But we are setting ourselves up for potentially, if we do get above that line, we are setting ourselves up for potentially a squeeze play to the upside. It just could take some time, similar to Bitcoin. So don't get too excited. But we've already gotten the first move off of it, and what we want to do is really just hold on, hold on to this level, especially if we can hold above 1,150. That would be much more bullish than if we drop all the way to the bottom. Let's see, if we look at the daily setups here, yeah, I mean, ETH looks like it wants to continue. There may be a pullback like this, right? But it looks like it wants to continue. Yeah, the RSI looks like, it's a good place for a little bit of a pullback, but it's still well above its EMA, so not too bad there. We are having a continuation of the drive that is pushing us up. So for ETH, the setup is still there, and I don't see any slowing down on the oscillators. We do have quite a ways to go on the Stoke, pointed in the upward direction, and this does seem to be a corrective move. So it's not like it's not like we've turned into a bull run or anything, but it could be a nice little run that should continue unless this resistance just proves too heavy or we get some bad news in the market, such as bad financial data, or there's some type of issue with ETH 2.0 or something negative that could just change the narrative. I would just expect this to take a little time to work through this resistance, but hopefully we can continue the run. And if the economic news is good next week, then it could even prove to be a pretty decent run. We got this nice pump on the previous level up here, but you can see the overall trajectory was downward. Right now, we have a much stronger formation to the upside, in my opinion. And what we'll just want to be aware of is that there is the possibility that this fractal could play out where we do get a rejection. But the good news is that we're above the 10, and here we never were above the 10, right? So it's more like this position that we're in right now. And if we can just not dip too far below, if we can hold on to especially that 1,150 and just kind of like try to push through here, then that's going to give us our best options. And just be aware that if we do break down from those numbers, especially that 1,050, if we break down from there, it just we could test the bottom of the range or perhaps even dip lower, right? So just be careful with that. And other than that, I think I'm going to end it there. This was a pretty good, just a short episode. And let's see if there's anything else that I might need to cover. I think we don't have to talk about stocks. Nope, I think we're good. Just double check Bitcoin really quick. Maybe just double check its indicators. And same thing as ETH. Uh, Obviously ETH is looking a little bit stronger, but Bitcoin still has the potential to go. And although we're pulling back on the RSI, this formation, it could end up being something like this, right, where we just continue to drop. Let's see where that one lined up with. Right, this kind of move right here. It could be that we just continue to drop down slowly. So we are going to want to see on the RSI something like this, where it just kind of like bounces up. And if we can get that nice bounce off of the white line here, then I think that that run should be going forward because we're going to be putting in something like this. It's going to become very bullish, right? But if we just kind of like a break back underneath that white line, then it could be one of these fake outs, and that's just what we want to be aware of. Just want to watch out for that potential fake out, and it may then give a second try, right? It doesn't have to be game over. You see, this one failed right here. It dipped down and then it came up and then it tried again and it secured that area and then it was able to push. But just to be aware that we are in a little bit of a choppy area. So although the last couple days were quite bullish with incredible like 20 to even 100% gains on many altcoins, there were some altcoins that just didn't join the party. Bitcoin barely joined the party, but everything in general was a little bit more bullish than average. And some of them just extremely bullish. And then, but now we're entering where a couple days might just be, a little bit more shaky. And then we're just going to be paying attention to next week's data. All right, guys, gonna wrap it up. Obviously that was your alpha for the day, and stay safe and happy trading.